And welcome back. Dave Fanning here with hour number 2 of our Noel Gallagher special. That last interview, by the way, that you heard before the news, that was from 1994, nearly 30 years ago. It was before the release of the very first album from Oasis called Definitely Maybe. Okay, if I have the time, I'm going to play some new songs like Pretty Boy and Dead to the World and the title track of the new album, Council Skies, in this next hour. But first, the new single. And don't forget, by the way, the band plays Kilmainham in Dublin on August the 27th. So, from Council Skies, this is Open the Door, See What You Find. Okay, just let's take a look at a few other bits, because I don't know why I want to go back to Morrissey, because you mentioned we mentioned him earlier on, but there is a story. Russell Brand, Los Angeles, Noel Gallagher. Just give us a bit of that first of all. I mean, first of all, you're with Russell.
I'm on holiday. Well, I'm on holiday with my missus and the kids.
Well, you know, I'm glad you told me you were on holiday, because I'll tell you one thing: Morrissey never found out you were on holiday. He doesn't give two hoots what you're doing. He only cares about himself.
So Russell is living out there at the time, as is Morrissey, and so I called. Russell's a friend of mine, so I called him, and he was saying, "Oh, I'll tell him Morrissey, you're going to be in town. He wants to go out for a drink," and that was great. And so we got down to this English bar, you know, and there he is, and he just cancelled a load of gigs because he had pneumonia or something, and I was like, "Now I've met him before," and I was like, I thought you were on death's door. You cancelled the gigs, and he's like, yet here I am.
Yet here I am. It's so Morrissey, those five words.
So anyway, we get to getting stuck into boozing, me and him, and he was with a couple of guys, and he pulls out this CD which he tells somebody to put. It's not a CD of his music; it's a CD of like a compilation CD, because the music's dreadful in this bar, you know. And he can't, and it's all this stuff from the '70s, Jabriath and Brian Prothero and New York Dolls and all this. And he's kind of going, "Do you know this song?" And I'm like, "No." And he's going, "Really?" It got to number 47 in 1973, and I was like, I'd never heard of it. But he played me this track one night that night, called Pinball by Brian Prothero, that I used as an inspiration for the track on Chasing Yesterday, called Riverman. But he gets a lot of flack, Morrissey, because he's tricky, but I adore him.
Oh yeah,
I adore him. I think he's one of the greats, and he's one of those people he will make me laugh until I cry laughing. He's and my jaw and stomach will be hurting the next day, but I love him dearly.
And of course, Russell Brand wasn't drinking.
Russell Brand was trying to hold on for dear life, because Morrissey was really being very, very mean to him, which was very funny.
Yeah, right, okay. Yeah, I've heard the stories, all right, yeah. Okay, so let's take a look at a few other things just while we're on you and out in the public eye. I mean, the things that we read in the paper sometimes are so funny. The way you can get a headline if you really want to. I mean, there's one here which is something about, I had it there a minute ago, I don't know. It's about, exclusive. Noel lets rip on the front page of the Mirror. And then it says, Harry's an effing woke snowflake. Now, you're not talking about Harry Styles here. You're talking about you-know-who. The same Harry who, by the way, I mean, you know, this royal family thing, you go to Australia, you can talk about your album, you can talk about Oasis, you can talk about anything. They just want to know, do you know Harry and what's he like?
I don't know. Everywhere you go, even in America, they're obsessed with the royal family. And well, actually, one of the funny things about that night was with Morrissey was it was the night of William and Kate's wedding back in England. And a woman came over to the table and she said, excuse me, but I overheard your accents and I know you're British and I just want to congratulate you on the wedding. To Morrissey.
Oh no!
Morrissey slammed his hands on the table and put his eyes up into his head, so he had white, and he was just going, I've never seen, it was almost like seeing out The Exorcist. But I mean, I've been asked to comment on the coronation, and I was like, my generation don't care. We don't care. You know, one way or the other, like, we just get on with it. You know what I mean? No one's bothered now the Queen's dead. No one cares.
Well, then here's a more important question then. Haaland, do you think he's better with the ponytail, or do you think he's better looking like a sort of a Viking god? I
think he can do whatever he wants with the Barnet. That guy he's just the dragon slayer.
He really is.
I love him. He's a funny lad, by the way. Yeah. He's very funny. And I mean, he is some player. He's some boy. Yeah, it's great.
You know, when we were outside earlier on, I was talking about current modern music, and one of the things you can give out about all the time, bland and all the rest, is there's no room for, or you're not allowed to have, mistakes.
Yeah.
Do you look back on music from the past and say, that's why it's real, it's human or something?
Of course, if you listen to any early Rolling Stone stuff, it's all out of time and out of tune, and the Beatles stuff and all of them, you know, and which is why, that thing of a band recording in a room is very, very special. That's why Definitely Maybe is a special, special album, because it was the five of us doing that thing that we did in a room, no frills, you know, a couple of overdubs, that was it. And recently listening to these outtakes that I found in the Sony vaults, it proves it, you know, it's just the magic things. But now, everything's on a computer now. You know, people write songs that are not even in the same country. You know, it's a far cry from the music that I and you grew up listening to. But and all that's all right if you've got a song, if you've got a tune, a chorus. You know, I get asked a lot, "Have you got any advice by kids? Have you got any advice?" And just put everything into the chorus. It's your life. It's life and death. The chorus is a life and death. And I think young lads now, when you see bands, I don't know what it's like over here, but the lads in bands seem to wear guitars as opposed to play them, and I just think songwriting is suffering. I think
songwriting is suffering indeed. So if that's the case, then like what can be done, or can anything be done? I mean, like you were given out recently about, you said something to do with Friends, like the TV programme, and coffee houses, and the money is not going. You see, there's an audience out there that's basically getting music for free these days.
Well, yeah,
and therefore they don't appreciate it.
Well, no, of course. Why? How could you if you've not got on the bus, gone into town to buy it? How can you feel any ownership of it? That's exactly it. And the thing about Friends, I never mentioned Friends. I don't know how that's really said recently, and that's the thing I've been going on about for years. That my point was that people will gladly pay €20 for 2 coffees, but will refuse to pay for music. Yeah. Things that can change your life. You know, that can make you a better person, that can alter the way that you think about things. Music has changed people's lives. People now refuse to pay for it, but they're going to sit and pay €20 for 2 overpriced coffees, talk nonsense for half an hour and get on with their lives. So expression and freedom of thought, is that what you really get out of music? Is that what music is? From well, it's fascinating. Songs themselves are fascinating. You can play 10 different people one song, and they'll all have a different opinion on it. But it's music for me was always escapism, because I had a pretty tough childhood. It was like I was just immersed in the music, and you know, you would close your eyes and you'd just drift off, and that'd be it. So it means different things to different people. Some people exclusively listen to sad music, you know. Some people exclusively listen to pop music, but the art, you should pay for it, because the artist puts his life and soul into it. Do you know, you growing up, there was so many people in the family in terms of, like, you know, other, like, I mean, nephews and nieces and all the rest of it, etc. And you've often said, like, no matter where I am, I really do have this feeling that people from Manchester are just the best. Well, we're just different. Tony Wilson said it the best when he said, we just do things differently. But yeah, I mean, every time, I mean, I go back regular, and there's something about it. I was driving around there, I was up there for the match the other night, and I was just driving around there, and there's some funny people in that town. But all the heritage in that city, and the bands that come, you know, even if at a conservative estimate, half a dozen of the greatest bands of our lives have come out of that city. The Bee Gees and the Buzzcocks and the Mondays and Joy Division, Oasis, Stone Roses, you know. You said there earlier on that you were driving around Manchester. I'm glad I'm sitting down here. Were you driving? I don't drive. I was just going to say, you weren't driving. No, you were being driven. I was being driven, yeah. I'm part of the solution. I'm not part of the problem. Oh, I like that. Sorry, are you telling me you've never learned how to drive? No, never. I think I had one driving lesson in the 90s, and just like, it's not for me. So in London, it's both underground and taxis, is it? Well, I used to take the tube a lot before the pandemic, and I've kind of gotten out of the habit of that. But yeah, the tube, I love getting on the tube. I mean, it's just easier. I can't be bothered with cars. It's never stopped me buying a few, but I don't. People who drive cars always be stressing out about nowhere to park and all that thing, and it's just I can't be bothered with it.
But okay, so like if you're on the tube, I presume you wear a cap or something.
No, I don't wear anything. I go.
Okay, so Noel Gallagher sitting there. I'm sure there's some types who finally realise who you are and have to say it to you like they've won a competition or something.
Are you Liam Gallagher?
Well, no, the Liam Gallagher one I was going to get to. And the Liam Gallagher one is this. Do you think some people say it to you just to annoy you?
No,
I know, obviously lots get it wrong.
I don't think so. I think people I think because they recognise the face, because we look similar. Yeah. And he's more prominent than I am. It's just like, that's the way it is. I wouldn't have thought people say it. It doesn't annoy me anyway. So
right. So like, okay, but let's just go back then to the band itself, because in 2009 you broke it up. You were outside a gig and you said, "That's it. That's fine." You seem to be very happy about that breakup. I mean, you said it was the right time to do it.
I think so. I'd forgotten how to write for Oasis. I felt very constricted by the parameters of the stadium rock thing, and it had run its course. I don't mean the band. The band was still doing monster gigs, but it dawned on me we'd been doing the same 12 songs for 20 years, with a few added new ones, and it was the same stuff off the first 2 albums. And yeah, it just run its course for me. As a writer, I died really, and I had a rebirth when now I write at my own pace and I can write whatever I want. I'm 5 times the writer I was now than when I left, and I just think if we were still together and we were still putting out albums, it would be dreadful.
Really?
I think the music would be I'd never have written The Death of You and Me. Right. I'd never have written Riverman. I'd never have made Who Built the Moon. Yeah. I'd never have got a chick playing the scissors. None of that would have happened. Now, some of you listening might think, well, you wish it hadn't have happened. But for me, it's been a great little trip. The High Flying Birds. I've loved it.
Yeah, but could you go back and say we should have taken a year off? We should have taken 2 years off. We should have gone off to do our own thing and then come back refreshed.
I had mentioned that once or twice, and the other fella was, to paraphrase, "You're not fucking putting me on the shelf for 3 or 4 years or whatever," and you become institutionalized by a band the way it's just all that you know. Yeah. All that you know is playing What's the Story, Morning Glory and Cigarettes and Alcohol, and it becomes second nature. And when it becomes second nature, it becomes boring. And there's one thing, I can put up with anything apart from boredom. Boredom is the enemy for me. And if I listen, if I listen back to the latter part of Oasis, it's kind of starting to get a bit better, but really, there's not really a great deal in there. And everybody else has started writing, and it's not what it was. Oasis was always Liam singing my songs. That's what it was. And then he wanted to write more, therefore the other guys wanted to write more. So it wasn't really worthy of the name on the cover of the record for me. And then there was other things going on, behind the curtain that it just wasn't a very happy time.
What about the documentaries that we've seen? I mean, the
documentaries are great.
Yeah, they do give a good picture.
Yeah. Well, when the first one, Supersonic. Yeah. I have to give credit to the producers who made it, who I thought it was going to... Because it started off, the Supersonic started off as what became the Nebworth documentary, right? And the guy said, look, no one's interested in a gig. They want to see what it was like to be in the band. And I was all like, oh, God, I don't want to deal with the fallout thing and all that. And luckily they said, we think there's a great film from the day you formed to the day you walked on stage at Nebworth. That's the story. Yeah. And I was like, well, they are the glory years. And credit to them. Yeah. They pushed it all in that direction. So there's no tragedy in Supersonic, and there's no tragedy in the Nebworth documentary, which is perfect. It's perfect. I'll just leave it at that. Because future generations, I tell you what, the Supersonic documentary sold it to future generations, and the Nebworth thing is just a celebration of the 90s for me. And I think I think they're perfect. I think we did a
Well,
good
the
job.
future generations, let's just say they're there at the moment, because like, I mean, it's been 13 or 14 years since Oasis, and certainly 13 or 14 or 15 or 20 years since the 90s. And the amount of people buying Oasis albums now, the amount of younger people under the age of 21 who are looking for something that just isn't there. And you gave it to them, you gave it to us, I mean, and then you're giving it to them now as well by proxy. You're not even doing it.
Yeah. But that's the testament of the well, I would say it's the testament of the songs.
Well, then why couldn't you go out and do all that again and do like the 10 best high flying bird songs? Even do a BDI. Would it be a stretch to do a BDI song?
I wasn't in BDI, so that wouldn't interest me in the slightest. But you could easily be done again. But you know.
And forget the money. Forget all this 100 million being offered. Nonsense.
No one's ever been.
No,
offered.
I know that. Yeah, although Liam believes it.
No, but Liam believes in the Tooth Fairy, right, and the Loch Ness Monster. So I'm afraid he's not a very reliable witness. It would have to take an extraordinary chain of events for it to happen. I'm not saying those chain of events could never, would never happen, but I just don't see it. Our kid can be very disingenuous with the way that he keeps saying to people on Twitter, it's happening, and, he should put his money where his mouth is if he thinks it's happening.
But like the fact that he would take you to court about being, you said he was hungover and couldn't do some gig or something, does that rankle? The fact that he's looking for the 8 quid back for the 2 vodka and tonics, which your mother then gave him. But Lee says that's not the same thing as getting it from you, Mum. I got to get it from Noel.
There is a saying where the boy protesteth too much.
Okay, we're going to play another song. This is Pretty Boy, which is from the album Cancel Skies. In other words, the new one from Noel Gallagher and High Flying Birds. Well, we've heard from Noel 2023 and we will again in a few minutes, and we've heard from him in 94 and 2000. Now let's go back to 2008. Noel Gallagher, family man.
I've got kids. Now kids are a great leveller. You either raise normal people to a certain extent, or you raise idiots. If you were never to go to the shops and never to converse with the woman at the checkout, or never to be seen to be buying a pint of milk, or you haven't got the right change, and all that nonsense, your kids will grow up to be idiots, So when I take my kids around the supermarket, it's kind of it's letting them know that although Dad is on the TV every now and again, they get a bit. My little daughter, when the last time I was in the Waitrose was with her, I was getting hassled by some guy who was saying, "Can I take a picture?" And I was saying, "Well, I'm with the kids," and he said, "Oh, come on, can I take a picture?" And I was going, "Look." It was like Sunday morning. We were trying to buy breakfast, and he said, "Oh, come on, mate, you're a legend." And my little daughter, who's 8, looked at him and she said, "I think technically you have to be dead to be a legend." And I was like looking at her, going, "What a child! I'll give you that, fatty," And that was it. We walked off, and I was like, "It's great that she should be in a situation like that." She's going, "He's an idiot. You'd be dead to be a legend." It's like, brilliant. You should be my PR.
By the way, do you like being a dad? I mean, is it good?
Yeah, it's great.
Like your dad used to lay concrete floors, loved country and western music. You didn't really see him that much. By the way, the country and western music side of that, did you pick up on that much? Did you ever?
Yeah, he brought home the first guitar that was in our house, So there you go. If it wasn't for that, I dare say we wouldn't be sat here now. But I never planned to have children. They happened. It's not like I feel I'm super dad or anything like that. And it's not like I would. It's all about the kids, It's not all about the kids. It's not all about me, and it's not all about the missus either. It's all about the family. Do you know what I mean? But I like being a dad. It's great fun, to be able to act like a prison warden to 2 little kids. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
Sit down, stand up, sit down again. Come here, go away. I like all that. It's brilliant.
What about the responsibility side of it? I mean, there's another side of it.
That's what mothers are for. Dads are for fun, football, chalk ice and chips, right? The mothers have the responsibility.
Right.
It's not. I'm not educating nobody. No, I'm here for shits and giggles, right? If you want anything important doing, go and see your mother.
All right, well, look, I'll tell you what, I'm going to move back over then to Oasis for a second or two. Get away from the family stuff, which is the Liam thing. How's Liam doing these days? Is he all right?
He's great. He's started really looking after himself and eating properly and jogging, apparently. I see pictures of him in the paper and all. I've yet to see it in person, but it's about time he started looking.
When you get to the songwriting, and like he had Songbird, and you made the album Stop the Clocks for the best of, because you didn't want the record company to necessarily be in charge of that, because you mightn't trust them to do a proper best of, and you put it together. You put an illustration for every song.
Yeah.
You put a red brick wall or something for Songbird.
Yeah. Well, should I tell you why that is?
He didn't. Well, because red is the colour of love. Is that it?
That's right.
That's a terrible answer for Liam.
That's right. Well, Liam being Liam, thought it was in his own head, thought it was a red toilet wall.
Was it?
No. I don't know what it's from. But, you know, there you go. Liam hasn't got a clue what he wants or what he feels or what he knows or what he thinks he knows. He exists in this own tiny little bubble. You know. God bless him.
Is one of the reasons why Liam mightn't like you is because you're indifferent to him. He doesn't like somebody being indifferent to him. He wants to have a big opinion.
No, I think I annoy him greatly. And I understand that, because I'm brilliant and I'm better than he is, you know what I mean? And that's fine, you know. And he annoys me because I annoy him, you know. But it's not that we don't like each other. I wouldn't go out for a drink with him or anything like that. I wouldn't go to his house for Sunday lunch or anything like that. It always ends up in arguments about, you know, the track listing of Definitely Maybe or something, you know. But he's just another member of the band to me. Do you know what I mean? And I don't hang out with any of the other guys either. You know, I've got no particular favourites in the band.
Sure.
I was born a loner. You know, and yeah, I'm indifferent to him. He's obsessed with me.
Whether you would admit it or not, you are the leader of Oasis. Did that just happen?
I admit that.
Yeah, okay, you admit that. Great, okay. Did that happen by accident or design? Did it have to happen? Because it was hardly going to be Liam.
No, I think that every band, you cannot run a band as a democracy. You can to a certain extent, but somebody has to carry the can and make decisions and say, I think we should do this or we're going to do that. Other than that, you'd just be forever kind of, you know, everybody should have this. I mean, everybody does get their say and all that. But in the die was cast in the early days when Bonehead, Griggs, Tony McCarran, Liam didn't have a clue about anything, and I'd been in the music business, for want of a better term, for 5 years previously, so I kind of knew the moves that we should be making. And I just kind of, you know, and I was writing all the songs, so everybody deferred to me. Managers, record company all deferred to me, and it's just been that way ever since, but I don't mind that.
You know, I was doing a programme in London in the early 90s, and I met you before Oasis, and you were working for a band called Inspiral Carpets when we had them on the television programme, and that. You seem to really enjoy working there. I got the impression you loved being a roadie. Yeah,
I loved it. I thought, you know, when I was growing up, and I loved music, and I always thought I would somehow end up doing music, but when I got the job as a roadie, I thought that was it. And I would be quite prepared now to still be a roadie now. It was great money, you travel the world, you don't have to have your picture taken, nobody knows who you are. What a life. You know, but I really, that was the greatest gig in the world. It's like setting up a drum kit, you know, in South America. Didn't happen to people like me, you know. That's before all this. It's just, they were great days. In fact, I look back on those days, it's probably the happiest, you know, because you had no baggage, you didn't have to be anywhere, you didn't have to be anybody, nobody knew who you were. Yeah. But it was, yeah, they were great days, you know.
Take the time to make some sense of what you want.
Speaking of drums, did you play drums in this current album?
I played on 3 tracks, yeah.
On 3 tracks? Yeah. And you also went solo, not Oasis, on a tour.
Yeah, last November.
What are you telling us here?
Well, for the reason I enjoy doing that, and the reason that went on that tour was because we just finished the last tour, and Stop the Clocks had just come out, and we weren't going to promote it. Right. And they wanted to send me on a world promo tour. And I said, but I can't be doing a world tour of just doing interviews, because the only time I like doing interviews is when I've got a gig that night. Yeah. They're the good bits. And someone said, well, why don't you do gigs then? I was like, yeah. And it gave us a chance to play songs that we wouldn't normally play. And the gigs were kind of really, really small, and they were for competition winners. It wasn't really a paying thing. But No, I really, really enjoyed that. There's something I look forward to doing again.
Do you know, there's a momentum that happens that if you can just kind of get in on it, then, you know, things can just go along and be really big. For instance, when the Beatles came to America a few months after President Kennedy was assassinated, it just was right time, right place. It was just so perfect, this Beatles invasion. Almost nothing to do with them. You had 2 big albums in the States, you were going, or in Britain, the 2 biggest albums. And it was like, okay, now here we go. The States is going to be huge. This is going to be fantastic. And it was the big thing. You were on the news, getting to the airport. And in the airport, Liam goes out to have it and goes off. Do you blame Liam, no matter how big you might be in the States now, do you blame Liam for blowing the major chance?
I don't blame him, but when he says nonsense in interviews, like saying, "Oh, I can't understand why we're not as big as America," it's like, well,
look back to the airport incident there, Liam.
If you're not going to turn up for gigs, then I put it like this: if we had Bono or Chris Martin, we'd be huge out there, because musically we're equal to those 2 bands. And I'm not putting Liam down because he's got his own merits and all that, but we're not the kind of band that engage with an audience. If we had members in the band who engaged with an audience, we'd be massive. Saying that, when we first did go over there, they did subtitle us on American TV because we're kind of Mancunians and we talk quite fast. And never was a band and a nation divided by the same language. They didn't know what we were going on about. But blame is not the right word, but one of the reasons that we didn't quite put the ball in the net, and it's not just Liam, we were a bit unprofessional when we went there. They thought we were on a record label which was used to Mariah Carey and Celine Dion. They'd never had a rock band from England, and they expected us to go there and play the game. Yeah. And that was the last thing on our minds. You know, we was like, look, we'll come and do whatever we have to do, but I don't really believe I've got to go and see the guy who owns the record shop with fat kids. What's all that about? You know what I mean? It's either, if you want to buy the record, you go and buy it. I'm not going to scratch anybody's back because I'm not expecting anybody to scratch mine. The deal is we turn up, we play, you clap, go and buy the record. If you don't, we'll go on. You know. Right. But to them, it was to Epic at the time. It was so alien to them that they couldn't believe that we were not willing to kind of bend over backwards for them. But you got to stay true to yourself, I think.
OK, well, it's a new magazine, prestigious music magazine from Britain. When it did its 500 or 50 greatest British albums of all time, you had a bunch of them in there, and you were also at number 1 and 2. Is that correct? Is that where you should be?
I was just going to jump in there and say there was number 1 and 2. Yeah, number 1 and 2 and 17 and 11. Yeah. I think.
So 4 in the top 20.
Yeah, 4 in the top 20.
Pretty good, isn't it?
Better than the Beatles, I think, to find.
That's right, indeed, yeah.
Well, when those things always come out, you'll always find that the biggest album of the last 2 years is always sits on top of there, so you can never quite judge what they mean. I've got to say, I was really made up that the 2 albums were way over 10 years old. So they've stood the test of time. Yeah. It's not kind of it's not part of any fad or anything. So
OK, well, let's put it this way. In standing the test of time, is it a bit of a problem? Is it that, like, once you've had those 2 albums, is it very difficult to start judging the next 5 after the madness of those 2 and what they meant? I mean, they meant everything. Even the fourth. What was the 4th single for the first album? Cigarettes and Alcohol or something. You said, don't release the 4th single, and that was the biggest hit. And that proved you were wrong. Like, it was just such a big album. Every single bit of it.
Well, if I was to sit and listen to you, Mr. Dave Fanning, I'd never write another song. But me being the way I am, it's like I love the history of the band, and I love those, but I particularly love the first album. But I never sit down to write and think what's gone before. I just do it for me and for now. You know, if I never write another song, I'll go to bed thinking, well, I'm easily in the top 10 of all time. Easy. Write another song if I thought about Champagne Supernova or Rock and Roll Star, because who's bettered those songs in this? And the one thing that gets me is when you know, a review of an album comes out, they'll always say, yeah, but you know, definitely maybe a Morning Glory, and they've never really kind of set the sun. It's like, right, well, who has? You know, so you're putting me in the same category as every other band in England, because nobody's bettered those 2 albums, right? Not me, not Tom York, not Robbie Williams, not U2, nobody. No one. So we're all in the same boat. But they never say that when, you know, Radiohead's album comes out. Well, it's not up to scratch, it's not up to the same standards as Definitely Maybe. You know, no, man, let's all move on.
There you go, more music there from High Flying Birds and Noel Gallagher. Just a few last things, Noel, just about the whole idea of, like we were talking there about modern music and that, but what about, like, you did sound pretty heartfelt when you said basically that the arts could do with a few less posh people. It's the point.
Well, let's put it in very simplistic terms here. Musical equipment is very, very expensive now. When I was growing up, it was cheap, dirty, old equipment, and you know, necessity being the mother of invention and all that. Now, record labels don't seem to be willing to give the working class a shout. And the working class can't afford. The working class don't have a voice. All the grime kids do. All the kids who are into that, like that kind of music, they've got a voice. Young lads playing guitars don't seem to have a voice. And it's difficult. It's difficult times. You can't, but then again, the other part of me thinks, well, there cannot be some guy out there writing the best songs in the world and he's not getting a break. It can't be, because the music always finds a way, no matter what. You know, we live in an age where these capture everything. You know, and it will always find a way out there. But everything all the working class music seems to be these dreadful singer-songwriters. There's no bands anymore. Do you know what I mean? There's no bands where you see 4 guys.
That's what I'm saying about the people up to all the teenagers are looking for something that they really want, and they're only finding it in a band from the 90s called Oasis.
Well, we're all in our 50s now, so that's a bit sad, isn't it? But there you go. Yeah, well, then I don't know. I don't know what the solution is. I did my bit.
Yeah, the thing is, though, when you were doing your bit even before the band, you had your Enemy and you had your, you know, your sounds, a melody maker and smash hits, all etc. And like, you know, your mother knew you were doing gigs, you were playing gigs, you were successful. It meant nothing to her, but then you were on top of the pops, and therefore they're obviously successful.
Oh, you're on top of the pops. We're on Thursday. Oh, Jesus. I said to phone everybody, you know, and it was only then she started to take us seriously. But, yeah, I mean, we were, look, we were extremely fortunate that we were all from Manchester, and we had this great city with this great musical heritage, so you didn't have to look far for the inspiration. It was all around you, you know.
Yeah.
But all those rehearsal rooms now, they're all flats. You know, all wine bars. So even that on a very, very basic level has all gone. Rehearsal rooms are expensive. You know, musical equipment is expensive. All the old second-hand music shops are shut down. Economics dictates everything now in every part of society. And it didn't back when we were growing up. You know, there were people who owned disused warehouses who were just happy to let you use it. Do you know what I mean? But that's just the way of the world.
Okay, well, the final question then. Just one other person I want to mention, because you've toured with, you seem to get on very well with the lead singer of U2. How's that going?
He's good. Yeah, he's all right. He's doing his book show.
Yeah, it's called Surrender. It's a one-man show.
I've seen it in London.
Brilliant, isn't it?
I was blown away.
Yeah.
I couldn't, because there was none of it on YouTube and you didn't really know what to expect.
There's none of it anywhere. Also, they take the phones off you before you get in. You can't see or do anything.
Yeah.
But it's astonishing. Like, I mean, some people spend a whole life putting on a one-man show like that. Yeah. He's just doing that in between other things. There's nothing else going on.
My eldest son, Donovan, I took the kids to see it, obviously because they know him really well, and at the bit where he's up dancing on the table, leant in and said, I think he's finally lost it. And but it was great. It's like nothing else I'd ever seen before.
Yeah.
And but yeah, he's good. He's good. They're getting ready for the thing in Vegas in September.
Yeah, I know,
which is going to be great. Which I'm going to be going to. I can't wait. It's my favourite period of U2. Right. And I actually sent Edge when they did that Actone Baby thing in Manchester in 1992. They did a gig with Kraftwerk and Public Enemies for that Sellafield thing. I sent them a set list and was like, might want to have a look at this. The set list to die for, you know. And but they're doing good. They're doing good.
Yeah, right, indeed. No, that one-man show thing is very good.
Oh, it's
really
amazing.
is.
If you
And
get a chance to go and see
it
the
really
show.
is a story about his youth,
Yeah,
his
yeah,
father in particular, obviously his friends,
Yeah.
and a little bit of Pavarotti, and that's it. Would you ever see yourself doing that?
No.
From growing up in Manchester, no? Because it's very much grown up in
Well, I
Dublin.
say it now. I'm about to go on tour, and I've got a couple of other albums lying around. Not now, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I can't see it, but you never know.
All right, well, listen, may the road rise with you. Thanks a million.
Thank you very
no,
much.
good man
Thank
yourself.
you.
It's good to see you again.
Thank
Take
you
it
very
easy.
much.
So that's it from this Noel Gallagher Bank Holiday special. The new album is out this week, Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds. It's called Cosmic Skies. So from producer Reg Luby, myself, Dave Fanning, good luck. Take it easy. We leave you with this.